Alright guys, Jameson and Alex here. Today we're going to be talking about the Barbarian Subclass, specifically Roleplay tier list.
Yes.
So, if you're new to the channel, when we're talking about roleplay value, specifically, it's very important for the tier list.
Specifically.
We're talking about the abilities gained in the subclasses and how they improve the RP potential.
Yes.
So we're not talking about class fantasy, history, lore, background. That's on you as a player. We're not rating that. We're rating how you're interacting with the world around you, NPCs, avoiding combat, things outside of initiative.
If it's not the book, what they say in here doesn't count.
Yeah, so I said that in reverse order to confuse you.
That's right.
Essentially, we're looking at the exploration and social interaction side of the abilities and how those abilities might improve the base class.
Correct.
Our tier list as to what each ranking is. Essentially, the summarization of it is if it's towards the S tier at the top, it's going to be powerful abilities that are used frequently and can be used in pretty much any campaign. If it's at the bottom, it probably doesn't have any RP abilities, or they're very limited use, if any. So that's kind of the high end, low end, but on the screen you should be seeing all of that detail. So what the process is we're going to do here is I'm going to give my take of the tier list.
And I'm going to tell him where he's wrong.
And then he's going to tell me that I'm wrong, and we're going to try to see if we can compromise on some of these. Hopefully we'll get most of them in the same area.
Yeah,
I don't too much.
I could specifically, not the exact examples, but there's only been like maybe 3 or 4 times in our 120 odd subclass reviews that you and I have gone like, what are you thinking? To one or the other about where we...
Usually it was either one of us wasn't thinking, like missed something key, like, oh, did not realize that was a thing.
Yeah, it like misread the wording or like whether it was...
one of us just had like a really, really bad day or something.
In my case, it was usually like, oh, you can do this all the time, and he's like, no, it's a once per long rest. I was like, oh, that's garbage. You miss like how often you get to use the ability.
Definitely can make a difference.
Or if it's only usable because it's a certain type of creature that you have weird modifiers.
So we'll tell you our thoughts.
Yes.
And then you can, what our thoughts are at the end is what's right. But if you think we're wrong, which we're not, because our opinions are the best thing possible, you can tell us down below, but there's no point because our opinion's right and yours is wrong. So we'll tell you all that, but we'll just get straight up into this today. The first subclass we're going to be discussing for the tier list is the Berserker.
Yes.
So one of the old school ones on here. So I'll go first on here. Looking at the Berserker, my thoughts specifically with this subclass, and just Barbarian in general, I'm going to preface all of these because I'm going to have the same comment on all of them, so I might as well say at the beginning, is Barbarian in general is more focused on combat than, say, something like a Bard, which the base class has a lot more focus on being the face of the party, and also the stats you have.
Yes.
So Barbarians are strength-based, and their thing is smashing things. So a lot of their base class stuff is giving you things to smash things.
Yes.
And that kind of ties in a little bit with the roleplay department for a lot of these subclasses. So I'm just going to preface that right off the bat. So with the Berserker, your focus on this is to smash things.
I mean, it's in the title. It does say Berserker.
Yeah. So looking at Frenzy, first of all, you're getting the ability to make a weapon attack as a bonus action each of your turns.
Yep.
And then when your rage ends, you suffer a level of exhaustion. Well, first level of exhaustion for RP, not the greatest thing possible. You're actually hurting your RP because you're getting the disadvantage on ability checks. It's not going to be the best thing. Yep. Then you have your mindless rage. While raging, you can't be charmed or frightened. That could definitely come into play, some niche circumstances. Though
but you're going to have to rage
ahead of time.
Yeah.
So that's the issue there. Then moving on to your intimidating presence. You can frighten some people. Use your action to frighten with menacing presence.
Yep.
That could definitely be used in some roleplay scenarios, things like that.
For sure.
Maybe for interrogation or just to scare people, whatever. Maybe you're trying to scare people to leave an area, whatever. There's lots of different uses that could be done. But it is a save, and there's a chance that it could fail. So that's always something to keep in mind there.
Yep.
So, and then lastly, we have your retaliation, where that's straight up combat ability, using your reaction to make a melee weapon attack against something that hits you with damage. So looking at these, there's not a whole lot of abilities that are really going to help you in the exploration / social interaction side of combat on here.
No.
So I put the old Berserker in the old C tier because there are definitely some very niche uses that maybe put it up a little bit up there to maybe save it from being at the very, very bottom.
Well, unfortunately, we're not going to have a lot of fun on this one because I put it also in the C tier.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, the only real focused RP ability you have is the Intimidating Presence, which is really geared for frightening people out of combat, but could also be used in combat as well. Right. But definitely leans more to the RP side of things. Easily leans that way, I should say. Whereas the Charmed and Frightened, you're going to have to rage to end it. And there's going to be an argument of, if you are charmed or frightened out of combat, how do you know you're charmed? Like, frightened, right. Yeah, you're scared of something. You was like,
right.
I'm not scared anymore. Rah!
Yeah.
But
that is true.
But it's only going to last for 6 seconds because you're not in combat anymore.
Yeah, and so you get your
endless rage, yeah.
Then it's going to be a bit more useful. I guess the only thing to maybe save you is, as a barbarian, maybe your first instinct is to rage, so maybe you accidentally break your charm.
Yeah.
That's kind of like a borderline metagaming, a little bit there, so...
Yeah.
That's what it
is. There's not a ton there, but again, as with a lot of these, if you are familiar with our subclass video stuff, a lot of subclasses tend to be more focused on one side or the other, and some are kind of middle of the road both. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see, how we compared... back to some of our subclass reviews and how they balance in with here.
Yeah.
Because there's definitely going to be some things like we look back and like, oh.
Yeah, we underdid that.
We underdid that, or we oversold this kind of thing.
That for some of these later ones.
So there's going to be some interesting things coming along. But so far, no arguments here. C tier as well.
All right.
So next up, we're staying in the PHB, of course, with Totem Warrior, as we're going to try to cluster the ones that came in the same book together as best we can. That way they stay, where you see them at the same time. And Totem Warrior is definitely going to be, to me, the most RP heavy because there is a lot of different RP choices that can be had. And this is a unique Barbarian subclass because of it, because there are choices, which creates an interesting bit. The fact that you can actually cast spells as a Barbarian to start with, only as rituals, but they are going to be RP spells. Right. Beast Sense, Speak with Animals, Beast Breathing. I did it. I planned it ahead of time. Great stuff. But you have, when you pick your Totem Spirit at 3, you've got, 5 different choices. Some of them are going to give you movement speed. Some of them are going to give you extra jumps, dash as a bonus action, things like that. All of which can be used in and out of combat. Because if you've got extra movement speed, if you're just trying to chase somebody down, you can do that. That allows you to do that better. The jumping distance, you get extra exploration things, which are opportunities there. Argue that's not super effective all the time, but the choice is there. Also, with 6, you take Bear, you can move stuff, push, pull, and break objects better, which is very what Barbarians, that object's never too big for me to do something with. Whereas Tiger lets you get some different skill check proficiencies and things like that. So there's plenty of things going down through the list. Commune with Nature spell at level 10. But only as a ritual, again, because you're not a real spellcaster, but you're just really in tune with nature. And, again, some of the things, like with Eagle at the very bottom, while raging, you get a flying speed equal to your current walking speed. Granted, it's while raging, so, again, until you get that endless rage, relentless rage, you probably may not want to do that out of combat. If you really needed to get across a gap in 6 seconds, you could. But there's a lot of good choices, again, because there's a lot of versatility there. I didn't hesitate to put this in the A tier. For the RP side of things, because there's, depending on which way you go, if you go some more of the combat build animal choices, it may not be as high, but because you can build and there are a lot of choices and versatility within, I went with the A tier.
Very interesting. I was almost certain you were going to say S tier, but I surprisingly also put it in the A tier.
Oh wow, this is going to be not very fun. We agree on everything.
We actually agree relatively often. So the thing with this one, the reason why I hesitated primarily to not put it in the S tier is that of your 4 totem abilities that you get, 2 of them require you to be raging. Yeah, so to me, that's kind of like you're digging into your rage uses to actually use those RP things, which you definitely can do. And as you get higher level, obviously it makes more sense. You have more uses, and eventually at level 11, you get your relentless rage. So that definitely makes it a lot more viable after that point. But those first 10 levels, you really got to think about: do I really want to use this for RP?
Right.
Also, the other thought on here is, as you said, if you have the choice to pick all roleplay ones if you want. But then you're going to be hurting yourself a little bit on the combat side if you do decide to do that. There are some, like the flying speed, that can definitely kind of be used all the time.
Yes.
So that's definitely a good choice on there.
Especially once you have your relentless rage.
But the kind of joke that goes along, I think, with Totem Barbarian is they just call it Bear Barbarian because you're going to take Bear Totem most of the time, so you get that resistance to everything except Psychic.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to justify not taking Bear. Obviously, it's fun to build things that aren't common because everyone does this thing. You want to do something different just to mix it up.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's a huge thing to give up. So to really forfeit that ability for your roleplay, definitely you would feel that. So yeah, the A tier I think definitely makes the most sense. And again, on the same boat on that one. So
I think it's one of those. I do like the fact that it is unique. Is the fact that you could have 3 different Totem Warrior Barbarians in your party, and all 3 be built completely different.
This is true.
Which just create some interest, which unique. Even if you just had 2 in your party, and one's bear and one's tiger, for example, that does create some interesting opportunities. That is very, very rare in 5th edition. That you got basically a subclass within a subclass. Depending on how you pick.
There's only a few of those possible. All right, so moving on to the third one for today is the Beast Barbarian. With this one on here, definitely some interesting choices. Again, kind of similar to the Totem, where you get some choices, but you're a little bit more free in the Beast Barbarian than you are with the Totem. You're kind of locked in there.
Right.
So with the Beast Barbarian, right off the bat, at 3rd level, you're going to get your bite, claws, or tail that you can adapt when you rage. Mm-hmm. But, of course, those are primarily going to be combat as you're dealing damage or knocking things prone when using your reaction. So stuff like that is going to be combat. So, sorry, this isn't combat. This is roleplay we're talking about here. So then we move on to level 6 with your Bestial Soul. This is where things get a little bit more interesting. Yep. You have the ability to swap the benefits that you get from this on a short or long rest. So you have your climbing speed that you can adapt, including upside down on ceilings without needing to make an ability check, which definitely can come into play. You have your jumping, which you can make an athletics check, extend your jump, things like that. And then, of course, the swimming speed and being able to breathe underwater. So you have 3 big things that can be definitely used for exploration. Yep. More on that side than on the social interaction side, obviously. But nonetheless, definitely good options that can be swapped between based on the circumstance.
Yeah, if you know you're going out to sea, you can get that swimming speed.
Right. Then at level 10, you have another combat ability with Infectious Fury, dealing extra damage, things like that.
Yep.
And then we get down to your capstone at level 14, Call the Hunt, where initially you think this is definitely combat, but if you look at it closely, when you enter a rage, you're getting temporary hit points for each creature that accepts it. Now, they're not going to get the bonuses that for them, but if you're going to do something stupid, where you could be taking 30 damage or so, or 40 damage, or 20 damage, whatever, you could be gaining temp HP before you do something stupid, because you can use this a number of times, you will do your proficiency bonus. Right. So you kind of have some uses of it where you can kind of just play around with it, just take some. I mean, you have lots of HP anyway.
You're a barbarian,
so you're not going to need to do it that often. Yeah. So you could definitely kind of buffer yourself if you're going to open a really sketchy chest, or maybe try to make a jump that you're not quite sure if you're going to make it, just to kind of buffer some damage.
Or you're like, I can fall from a greater height and live than you can because you're a barbarian and you're stupid.
Exactly. So there's definitely some niche circumstances on the capstone as well. Yeah. All that being said, you're really just getting the climb, swim speed, and jumping. Yep. And the niche use with the temp HP, I guess maybe could be used. So I threw it in the C tier, which I'm feeling we're going to be on the same boat on this because we're kind of on the same grading scale.
Yeah, well, we are on the same grading scale.
I think we get bonus points for just being on the same page for all of this.
Because I promise, outside of saying we're going to talk about these subclasses in this video, we have not discussed each other's rankings ahead of time. Of course, the odds of us being way far apart is very unlikely, as we did do subclass review these together. So I'm kind of using we're both kind of using those notes, and that discussion is kind of a bit of a framework. But because normally, to me, if I look at a subclass that gives me 4 total abilities, as far as named abilities or whatever, and only 1 is RP, at all, but then you really got to argue about one or the other one, it's going to have to find its way to get out of the D tier. Normally, so I'm told myself, okay, how does this get out of the D tier and into the C tier with only one ability that obviously helps RP and the other one, two have zero use in RP and one you got to argue about it.
Right.
The only reason why it does is because you can change it.
Yeah.
And you can change it not every long rest, but every short rest even. Yeah. So, even middle of the day, you're in the jungle, exploring. So you've got climbing, you climb up the tree, and you look around. Then you get to the beach. You're like, well, let's take a little short rest here on the beach, and I can go exploring in the water because I can breathe underwater. Right. Just the fact that you can change it on a short rest helps out tremendously with the value of that ability, which I really do like the chance to change an RP ability, an extra little buff like that in a short rest time frame. Definitely. So also C tier. All right, finally up for this video is going to be the Wild Magic Barbarian. And if you want a subclass that just thematically doesn't fit with what a regular Barbarian is supposed to do, you have found it in the Wild Magic Barbarian. Start off with the first couple of bits there. Magic Awareness is an action that's important. You can open your awareness to presence of concentrated magic. Into your next turn, you know the location of any spell or magic item within 60 feet of you that isn't behind total cover. You sense a spell, you learn what school magic it belongs to. Definitely has uses both in and out of combat. Probably actually more consistent for RP, just because of the fact it does take your action to do. Mm-hmm. So like if you're exploring like a wizard's, little cave hole or his tower, his study, whatever, and you're looking for maybe magic items he left behind or got stolen or whatever, you essentially have a kind of a detect magic built into a barbarian, so you can use it that way. Nothing too bad there. And then with the whole Wild Surge thing, there are some RP uses, like the teleport can totally be a use thing. Most of the rest of them are going to be, you can blind as well. Most of the rest of them is going to be combat, but they also are random. Right. So you can't reliably get RP out of that. Most of those are going to be primarily combat. And if you get an RP one and trying to use an RP, that just doesn't seem ideal for the limited number of uses thing. At 6, bolstering magic for 10 minutes, you can this creature rolls a D3, make an attack roll, or more importantly, an ability check, and add the number of the D20 roll. So just any way you can buff an ability check definitely helps with RP a little bit. But the other things, getting spell slots back could also be help for RP, because one of those indirect help things. Because if you're kind of tell your party that spellcasters like, hey, don't be afraid to use a spell in an RP situation if it's really going to help us, because I can help you get a spell slot back that you lost. Yeah. Because there's a lot of good RP spells in that level 1, 2, and 3 range, especially at 2 and 3. Right. So everything from locate object and things like that you may not normally want to use unless it's a very specific situation. But, now it's like, I can spend a level 2 slot because maybe that D3 will get me a 2 and I'll get that slot back anyway. And with the last 2 abilities, again, definitely leaning more toward the combat side of things. 10, you can, if you get a magic effect that happens like a charm effect, something like that out of combat, definitely helps. But definitely leans more combat. And the same thing with Controlled Surge. You do have some RP ability in your Surge table, but it's a lot more combat-based. I ended up in the B tier.
Interesting.
Or for the first time in the video, are we going to break apart here?
Well, I think the main thing on here that my main considerations when I was looking at it is, again, the detect magic on a stick is pretty nice. Yes. The ability checks, getting the bonus to that is pretty nice. And again, the spell slots, as you said, is very important to get for RP. So I actually ended up putting it in the B tier as well. So just because there are a lot of niche uses that can definitely help, and there's some indirect RP, and then of course also I know the capstone, I think you roll twice instead of once. Yes. It can help you fish. Like if you're like, I really need to teleport there right now, you can really just burn a few rages and re-roll 2 at a time each time, try to get that teleport.
Run, leave, teleport.
Reason. Yeah, right. Like if you're about to, like you fail the check and you trip, and you're like, I'm gonna try to rage to teleport. I mean, there's some niche uses, but of course you're burning rages to do so, so it's a little bit on the niche side. But I think the main thing is adding that D3 to the ability checks is pretty nice, and the spell slots. I mean, that's just huge. The rest of it, while on the niche side, definitely can come into play. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, there you go. Now you see kind of behind the scenes a little bit of what we do when we're doing our subclass reviews individually. We do the same thing, but we usually discuss it ahead of time.
ahead of time.
So the videos aren't 45 minutes long.
Yeah. But
these we've already looked at them once, so
yeah,
for the review, so it's a little bit more to the point. Yep. But yeah, this is going to be part 1. We're going to do a second part with the rest of the Barbarian subclasses. We want to try to keep these videos shorter, so you can kind of watch them in bites.
Yeah, but, instead of having to drop like all 8 subclasses in one video.
Yes. So as a recap on here, Totem, Barbarian, A tier; Wild Magic, B tier; Berserker and Beast, C tier. That's what we came to on this one. So, yeah, that's it for this one, guys.
Yeah.
If you enjoyed the video, remember to like, subscribe, hit the bell notification.
Tell us where we're wrong. Tell us where we're right. That's fine, too.
Yes. We also have a new round of the giveaway as well, so make sure you do that, too.
Free stuff.
Yeah. So, that's it for this one, guys. Let us know in the comments your thoughts on everything, why we're right, of course. And that's it for today, guys. Thanks for watching.